Okay, now that Zoom, I don't know what happened with Zoom again. All my meetings, I have preset time.
Yeah.
It's all disappeared. So I set up a temporary one. So I sent that out, give people a second to get it. I'm firing it. Okay, we're going to be going to the very beginning of chapter 4 again. We've done most of that first mission. I'm just going to reread it though. It's okay. It's fine. He'll probably teach better than me anyways. She or he?
She.
Oh, of course. It's near a chandle if it's going to be a she. Except now.
Listen, you can't use that one so much anymore.
I know, it's true. It's true. Baruch Hashem. Yeah, lots happened since we last met. Baruch Hashem, all good stuff, hopefully. And we are going to pick it up at chapter 4. We already did the first Mishnah with the exception of the last expression in there, and I'm going to reread it so that we can go into depth into the last part. And this happens to be, like I say, for some reason, just like there's certain Rashis that seem to become very popular, and the expressions are used in modern day Hebrew, even from Rashi. For example, Ma'inyan Shmita Eitz Har Sinai, which is, what does Shemitah have to do with Har Sinai, the beginning of Parshat Bahar? But it's used the equivalent of what's that have to do with the price of tea in China. That's used in regular modern Hebrew. So sometimes certain Rashis become more popular. Same thing is true with Pirke Avot. If you quote a Mishnah on Pirke Avot that's obscure, I've never heard of it. But you say certain like Ezehu Asher Samech Bechalko, 99% of the time, a person has some background, not even a tremendous one. They're going to know it. So this is one of those Mishnahs. Ben Zoma Omer, Ezehu Chacham, who is considered, again, we did the depth of all these, most of this already, so I'm not going to repeat it all, just for translation. Who is considered wise? Halomed mikol adam, someone who learns from everybody. Note, it doesn't say someone who knows Torah b'shabal peh and by heart, and someone who knows how to read a Rashi. It says someone who learns from everybody, and that means everybody. Shenemar mikom lamdai hiskalti. Tehillim says I've learned much from all of my teachers, because literally everyone can be a teacher by the way they act, the way they talk, the way they speak, and what they can actually bring to somebody else's attention. Ezo Gibor, who's considered a hero, who's considered strong. Koveshet Yitzro, someone who's able to overcome his Yetzer Hara. Shenemar Tov Erech Apayim Migibor Moshel Berucho Milokhed Ir. The next mission we're going to get to in a little bit, we're going to come back to this because it's going to connect. We'll see. Next statement, Ezehu Ashir, and this is the one we did last time, who is considered rich, Hasamech Bechelko, someone who's happy with what he has. Shedamar Yegiach Hapecha Ki Tochel Ashrecha V'Tovlach Ashrecha B'Olam Hazeh V'Tovlach L'Olam Haba. Period. So it gives a pasuk, a proof text of what it means to be rich. And we talked about the difference between having value as far as money and value as far as your Torah values and the way you treat people and the way you are and who you are and being happy with Chelko. Another one I did not mention last time, Samech Bechelko, that we talk about the word Chelek as having a part with Hashem and being a part of Hashem's people. That's also, you're happy being part of the Jewish people. You're happy having a relationship with Hashem. That gives a person a sense of happiness. And we know, like I'm some big deal, that their studies have shown that people who have a religion, who are religious, whether it's Muslim, well, put them aside, it's not a religion, Christianity, Judaism, you have a relationship with God already, and not just I believe in God, but you have something. A person goes to church, they go to the mosque, they go to the shul, the havdil. It changes a person's approach to life, and it gives them a sense more of purpose and happiness. So Ezo Ashir, who was considered rich in the sense of, in a spiritual sense, a samech b'chelko, and having a part in God. Now, what we're going to start with today is the last sentence. Ezo mechubad, who is considered honored or honorific. I'm not sure how they translate it by you. What's it say? Praiseworthy, honorable. Okay. One who honors creation, Hashem's creations. Generally speaking, we're talking about humans. Okay, so let's talk about this particular part of the mission now. Oh, sorry. We're learning Lilu Nishmat Avigdor Chaya Avram Ben Rachaleh Mer Tzvi, and also for the Ilu Nishmat Tauba Yehudis Bat Akiva Mer. Got that right? Okay. Very good. Allah Shalom. Shalom Shalom Aliyah, both. Obviously, one of the big things that's changed since we last met, besides my own personal life with babies, is the Hatufim. The living Hatufim are all back home. It's tremendous, tremendous simcha. Some of you at the table, and some of you will maybe hear this online, have been in positions or are in positions of authority. A boss. You have people that report to you. You may be one who reports to somebody else or had in the past. I've been in both positions where I've reported to people and people reported to me. When a person is in a position of authority, whether the principal of a school or the CEO of an organization or whoever it is, they have to understand something critical. The only difference between you and the people who report to you is your actual position that you have that authority over them. But that person is still a person. You don't have to denigrate somebody. Oh, she's just a waitress or he's just a waiter or like, oh, just a plumber, whatever it might be. Because you want to understand what it said in last week's parasha, that we are all created b'tselem Elokim. We're all created in the image of God. By the way, it doesn't mean physical, obviously, but the image being of what Hashemim represents. That's its own topic. But when Hashem says, Na'aseh Adam, it's one of the more difficult psukim in the Torah. It's what Hashem said in last week's parasha, let us make man in our form, in our image. So, of course, everyone's like, what do you mean, let us? This is God. So Rashi explains that Nimlach, he went to the Malachim and said, what do you think? Should we create man or not? And he had a discussion with them. This is Hashem. Okay, God does what he wants. We say that in davening. But Rashi says it's teaching us how to deal with people who are at a different station than we are. People who report to us. Take their advice. Discuss. Make them understand that they're part of the process. Now, as a boss or an owner or a CEO, you have to make the decision. Eventually, it comes down to you making the decision. But you, I don't mean you collectively, but people in general, you don't know everything. There could be factors. I have made decisions that were definitely wrong, and people reported to me, said, "Why'd you do that?" Or even as a rabbi of a shul, I'll make a decision. I did it one time. So, it was early on in my career, so I was beyond stupid and naive. I sent out a letter to the shul. We had the Friday night when you make early Shabbat. There's really only one way to do it. It's you daven mincha before plaga mincha, which is an hour and a quarter before sunset, and you say Kabbalat Shabbat and Arvit after that. That's the only way you can legally, officially, really make it early Shabbat, as long as you've daven mincha before plag. For some reason, historically, the shul where I was, even when I was growing up, in the summer, there's a 7 o'clock mincha on it, just 7 o'clock, no matter what time, and then the regular quote unquote mariv, like at 8 o'clock, whatever it was. And I sent out a message to the whole shul, didn't talk to anybody. The rabbi, the shul, dude, hey, you know what? From now on, no more 7 o'clock mincha. It's either the early one or the late one. That's it. There's no of this in between stuff. I might as well have told them that talk about their mothers or something like that, because I got it over the head, and rightfully so. I heard back right away. And then I heard that the president was very upset with me. Now, I happen, thank God, had a great relationship with every president. The shul was a wonderful, wonderful experience for 10 years. But I heard through the grapevine he was very upset with me. So this is on a Friday. I'd sent out this letter. Shabbat morning, he walked in. I go over to him, and I said to him the following. What I did was wrong. I understand what it is. We'll talk after davening. That's all he had to hear. What's the point of saying, oh, I want to jump through hoops? I said, I didn't talk to anybody about it. Yes, ultimately it rests with me, because in a shul, the way it really should work in most shuls is you have a division of responsibility. Halachic decisions of the rabbis, and everything else is the rabbi can be involved, but it's it's the board and the president. I'm like, I can't decide if I'm going to put a new air conditioner. I couldn't. So it was within my purview. But again, this Rashi should have been a good guide to me. Talk to the president. Don't just blow it up in their face. Something's been going on for 25, 30 years already. Fine. So point of being that isn't just like, oh, I'll hold the door for you. Can I help you take your groceries in? It's much more than, it's just seeing that other person and lahitchashev b'hem to, I don't know how you say it in English. Whatever. But yes, you can identify with them, and you take their opinion into consideration as well. There are times I'll ask someone's opinion. I'll say straight away. I say, look, I'm not going to necessarily accept what you're suggesting, but I want to know because I want to know if I'm doing something wrong or I'm making the right decision. I've had it many times. I've told you before. Person asked me to help make a decision. I said, you want me to help my decision, or did you make the decision? You want me just to validate it? And usually it's the second way. Almost always they've made that decision. Okay. So Ben Zoma is telling us that our position in life, when we're a boss, when we're whatever it might be, when we have someone who we are above, again, you know what I'm saying? I don't mean it, you know what I'm saying? That it's ephemeral, it's fleeting, right? It's who's on top today is not going to be on top tomorrow necessarily. There's a Gemara that talks about an individual who went to Shamayim, and he reports back to somebody in a dream. He says, Olam hafuch ra'iti. I saw an upside down world. Person in the world who was considered the top, he's on the bottom. The person on the bottom is all the way on top. What does that mean? You know, what we think is a person who's doing something good, is acting properly and all. You know, only Hashem is able to see really what's going on with that person. It could be a person who talks out of both sides of their mouth, and everyone thinks, oh, it's God's gift to man. So we have to be careful in how we treat people, and we're going to see that actually also in the next mission. It's going to connect to this. So he says, you want to be honored, you want to be honorable, then you need to honor and give kavod and respect to everybody. And I would say especially to people whom you disagree with. I have no problem. There's no problem with people disagreeing. Get into an argument. I don't mean to fight. Get into an argument. Talk it out. You don't know what you're talking about. Whatever the subject might be. But ultimately, the goal is emet, is truth. Trying to get to really what's the right thing to do. You won't always know that. It's trial and error. It's life. We all make mistakes. It's how you grow. I prefer learning from other people's mistakes, but I've had plenty of my own to learn from. But it's not stam that Ben Zoma is mentioning this, because it doesn't seem to flow in this Mishnah. We talked about who is considered rich, who's considered wise, who is considered strong. How does this who's considered mechubad fit? Because when a person is at a point in their life and they say, wow, you know what, based on this Mishnah, I've reached the pinnacle. Like, I'm happy with what I have. I'm a gibor because I've overcome my Yetzer Hara. I'm wise because, yes, I listen to everybody. Look at me. You want to be honored because it could go to your head. You want to feel that level of kavod. Doesn't even mean everybody else there's a reason for everybody here. Everyone has a reason and a purpose in this world, and you have to understand that. So Ben Zoma is telling you, don't let it go to your head. And there's a way to kind of self-examine if you're doing the right thing. When you talk to people, again, when I say you, I don't mean you sitting here at the table. In general, when you speak to somebody, are you short with them? Do you cut them off? Do you tend to take them down? Do you bark in their face? Or is it the opposite? You relate to them, to everybody. Do you listen? When someone's talking to you, do you listen? Or is your mind a million miles away? Mishne. There's a pasuk in Mishne, which in the class we won't get to for probably another 2 years, at least. In Pirke Kav Zayin, chapter 27, it says, "Kamayim hapanim lepanim, ken lev ha'adam le'adam." When you look at water, okay, look at a body of water, you look into the water. What do you see? You don't see a distortion of your face. You see, well, unless it's moving, you see a reflection. It's reflecting what you see. So it says the same thing is true when you stand opposite another person. When you see another person, your face reflects what you're seeing in that person. What does that mean? I'd be talking to you, and I say, and you're talking, okay, yeah, like, I can't wait to get out of here, right? I can't wait to finish talking to this guy. Or you could be, interested in something. The whole thing of body language, where you're sitting with somebody. If you're both seated, do you sit a little bit forward? You kind of slouch. You like. The eyebrows. There's a lot of stuff in body language. In the 70s, there was a book that came out called How to Read a Person Like a Book. I bought it and I read cover to cover right away because I thought I had this whole great idea about, wow, we could really learn a lot by looking at a person. And then someone wrote a book about it. I don't think it was the first, but it was one of the first maybe. And it's very true. You can You learn body language. You can see that in your own children and grandchildren and siblings and spouses and whoever else in your life. You really can see that and the way they react. And that's what this is about as well. How do you react to them? And that's reflected on you as well in your perspective. Okay, let's take a look now at Mishnah Bet number 2, chapter 4, second Mishnah. So I have the right thing here. So when I said earlier that another Mishnah is going to connect to this one, is going to be the third Mishnah, not this one. So this is its own standalone. So wipe that out of your memory. Make sure this is doing okay. Good. Ben Azai Omer. Ben Azai and Ben Zoma, remember, they were buddies. We talked about why they were called by the name of the son of Zoma, the son of Azai. We already talked about it, had 2 or 3 opinions, but they were friends. And he said in the next Mishnah Bet. Now, this sounds so logical and doesn't sound like it requires any discussion, but it will. One should run to do a simple mitzvah like a difficult one. And he should run away from an avera, from a sin. Why? First of all, he could have just stopped right there. That could have been the end of the Mishnah. Run to do a mitzvah, run away from an avera. But he adds, Shemitzvah goreret mitzvah, v'avera goreret avera. Because when you do a mitzvah, it brings along another mitzvah. It causes you to do another one. And this opposite, when you do an avera, also brings you to do another avera. Sheschar mitzvah mitzvah, because the reward of a mitzvah is itself a mitzvah. Uschar avera avera, and this reward for a sin is another sin. Very weird words, very strange. The reward of an avera is another avera. What's the reward? And he talks about mitzvah kala and mitzvah chamura, a difficult and easy, or easy and difficult mitzvah. But avera, he doesn't make that distinction. There's no distinction between an easy avera or a difficult avera. One is the ratz, to run, and the other is boreach, run away. Different verbs. So there's a few things we need to talk about in this particular Mishnah. Part of this Mishnah also does refer back to the one with Ben Zoma before, because in the prior Mishnah, it said, Ezehu Gibor. Who is a Gibor? Hakoveshet Yitzah. We just saw whoever is someone who's able to overcome their Yetzer Hara, they're considered a Gibor. They're considered mighty and strong and a hero. So I might say to myself, I have a Yetzer Hara. Let's say I have a Yetzer Hara, talk Lashon Hara. Thank God I really don't. I try my best. But let's say I did. It's like, and there are people, you can't say 3 words to them before they start talking about other people. It's terrible. Terrible midah. Anyways, so let's say that was my Yetzer Hara. And it says in the Mishnah, Ezel Gibor Koveshet Yitzhak. I'm just some weakling. I can't do anything. I really am stinky at this. So I might just give up. So but this Mishnah is telling, Ben Azai is telling us in this Mishnah that it comes in stages. It's in steps. You cannot expect to overcome. Let's say a person has a very serious Yetzer Hara about something, whatever it might be. You have to take it in stages. You have to train yourself. And he says the goal is to run to a mitzvah that's easy and to run away from an avera that would be a guarantee for success. What does that mean? B.F. Skinner, I think was his name, in behavior modification, correct? Wow, where did that come from in my brain? I think the last time I mentioned his name was in college. Anyways, shoot. Okay, behavior modification. So a lot of that has to do with retraining yourself. Mesilat Yesharim is a good example. He himself says it's very difficult to do, to train yourself to do something different than you're used to. But behavior modification doesn't happen overnight. You don't say person's addicted to cigarettes or whatever it might be, and then overnight they're no longer, that's it, I'm done, I'm cured. It doesn't work that way. It's a series of steps to do that. So how do you do that? How do you become the Gibor? How do you work towards becoming a Gibor? And not to say, I give up hope because there's no way I can overcome this. So Ben Azai in this Mishnah is telling us it comes in stages. You start off looking for a mitzvah kala. I'm going to talk about what does this mean, a mitzvah kala. with a kuf, not a kaf. A kaf means bride. A kuf that's a simple or an easy mitzvah, and then and running away from an avera. So let's say a person is pretty good in general. They do the stuff as best as they can in life. But there's an area that's fairly simple with it. They don't do brachot. It's fairly simple. It's not easy. The area halacha, as those of you doing the Smicha Chaver program, you're doing it. You having the Bechina today, or you had it yesterday? Yeah, on Sunday. Okay. So brachot is probably one of the most difficult sections of halacha because there's so many opinions and so many possibilities and iterations. But in general, in 90% of the time, it's a fairly straightforward bracha you have to make. It's an eitz, adama, shakol, amotzi, whatever it might be. Again, fairly simple. So you say, you know what? My Yetzer Hara is like, I'm just going to pop food in my mouth. I'm hungry. God knows I'm grateful. No. So you say, okay, today at breakfast, at lunch, I'm going to remember to make every bracha. I'm going to do it right. Or maybe on Shabbat, I'll make sure all 3 meals I make proper brachot. That is running towards, what's running mean? Running means to proactively seek out to do something, a fairly simple thing. But what does it mean that you should run to a mitzvah kala like you run to a chamura, like a difficult, quote unquote, a mitzvah? We have certain mitzvot we do once a year. Tkiyat shofar. We only blow the 1 or 2 days heading to Shabbat, 1 or 2 days. That's it. Lulav, we take for a week. That's it. But there are mitzvot we do every single day. And people run like, oh, I'm going to miss shofar. Right, I got to get there. By the way, men don't have to, but it's become customary for women to listen to shofar, and it's great. But it is an easy thing to do. Is the bracha we make once every 28 years. I've mentioned here many times. The Birkat HaChamatz coming up. We're here 12 more years. 16. That was bad math. 22 more years. 22 more years, right? So it was 16 years ago last time. I only know because it's Pesach before we made up, right after Pesach before we made Aliyah. So that's going to be like, oh, and wait for all the art scroll books and everything come out. And I still have one of them. Yeah. And then it's going to be, wow, it's going to wake up and it better not be cloudy. At that time of year, it's iffy still. It's right after Pesach. But okay, because you're excited. It's once. Now, how many times a person is zochen their whole lifetime to make the bracha? 4, the most. You have to make it as a little kid. She was zochen many more times. So he's going to run to do that. I'm going to make sure I'm up early and say hallel, but the sun coming up. Yeah, okay, bracha. So that's what Ben Azai is telling us. It's God is in the details. It's what expression is. These little day-to-day things. Like we said this morning in Kriyat Torah, I'm not giving the whole background, but in Kriyat Torah today, we said the pasuk, which is the idea that the Beit HaMikdash, every day, the morning started with the Korban Tamid, the daily sacrifice that was brought every single day, and it ended, the last one was the Korban Tamid, Ben Harbaim, late Mincha time. It was consistent every single day. Every single day. We have a fast day that one of the fasts is because the Korban Tamid stopped being brought. So it's consistency. And that's where you can fall down because you get used to it. It's part of your routine. So he's telling us to be careful with these little things, the simple things, just as much as we would be with the things that we will run to do because, wow, look at that. And so he says it's a guarantee for success. He said, why? The Mishne tells us 2 reasons. Number 1, mitzvah goret mitzvah. Because it becomes natural for you. What does it mean a mitzvah brings another mitzvah with? Once you get into the routine, once you take on yourself to try and grow in something, it's like, okay, in kvar, azkar, if I already am doing this, then I'll do that. And you add something to your repertoire. And that's wonderful. Maybe a person isn't, again, stam example. When the Chazan repeats Shmona Esrei, you say Baruch Hu Shmo, you say Amen if you're in Shul, and then when he says Modim, you say the Modim D'Rabbanan. We talked about in the Tefillah class because you can't thank somebody on your behalf. You have to still say thank you. Okay, so maybe you'll say is Modim Manachdulach, and that's it. You say, okay, no, you know what? I'm going to say the whole thing. It's in many shuls. It's on the wall, big giant sign Modim. It's in your Siddur. So say it. Say thank you another time. Get used to it. Once you start getting used to that, well, in Kvar, I probably should add at least say Asher Yatzar. Okay, let me say Asher Yatzar when I come out of the bathroom. If I don't do it every single time, at least let me try to remember it once a day, twice a day, something. Sheschar mitzvah. What does it mean that the reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah? A mitzvah gives us an opportunity. A mitzvah gives us the opportunity to do the will of Hashem. Every time we do the will of Hashem, by doing a mitzvah, then we're gaining a sachar, we're getting a reward. In this world, the next world, whatever it's going to be, but that's not why we do it. Imagine you have a person who works for a king, loves the king, and the king gives him a job. He says, what's the job? So, why don't you take a broom? I want you to sweep that corner. Yes, man. Yes, my liege. Of course I will. Yes, my liege. Blah, blah, blah. He runs off. He sweeps the. What's next? What's next? Okay, I want you to take out the garbage. Oh, okay, he takes it. Now what? Now what? As opposed to sweep the corner. I'm watching TV. Netflix series I'm watching. It's almost over. I'll get to it when I get to it. How quickly is he going to run back to the king and say, okay, what's next? So when you get into the routine of doing mitzvot and starts becoming a part of your life, and even the simple quote-unquote ones, it changes the person. Why is there no avera chamura and avera kala? It says mitzvah kala, an easy mitzvah, and there's a problem with that also. We'll see in a second. But before we get to that, why doesn't it say run away from an easy avera, just like you run away from difficult avera? Because the truth of the matter is, even though we may classify averot as easy or difficult, for example, it's easy to speak lashon hara. I can do it right now. Don't worry, I won't. It's not that easy to murder. That's a pretty big one. Or avodah zarah. But the truth of the matter is that any avera, almost anything we could slip into by accident, on purpose. It's an easy thing. There really is no difficult. There's no easy when it comes to avera. It's just plain out wrong. And we have always to be on our guard. So he says, oh, like I wouldn't ever, think of killing, but can't even think that way because it doesn't even, as they say, ba b'cheshbon. But what is a mitzvah kala? What does that mean? And not only that, there's something we learned already a while ago in Pirke Bet that said that says you have to be as careful for an easy mitzvah as a difficult mitzvah. So they put them on par. So what does it mean? Well, you should run to this just as much as you'd run to what is this? What's going on? What's a mitzvah kala? Beginning of Parshat Ekev, which we read a few weeks ago, seems like 1,000 years already. It's in the middle of summer. Rashi's there says, the pasuk says, "Vaya Ekev tishmeu." It will be if you listen to my mitzvot. Rashi says, what does it mean? Ekev. It's a weird, strange word. It means in modern Hebrew, use the same shorish, the word bi'ikvot. For example, bi'ikvot hageshem, due to the rain, then we're not going to have class or whatever it is. So Ekev also means like because of. But Rashi says that the words mitzvot shadam dash ba'akevo, the mitzvot that a person steps on with his heel. The word akev is the heel, like Yaakov. Vayakeveni is a pa'amayim. That we say, what it means mitzvah kala means in our eyes. But we determine, like what you might think is a mitzvah kala, you might think is something simple. I might think is the hardest thing in the world to do, and vice versa. I have, and I'd say for the last 27, I'm going to say 30 years. I would say the last 30 years, Baruch Hashem, except I've been sick or something, at a high 90% of the time I dive with the minyan. Shachar ben Chamar. I didn't grow up like that. And I mean, I dive, but the minyan, I couldn't care less. Honestly, I couldn't get, especially in high school. I got to Shalvim, it made a difference to me. Then it didn't make a difference to me. And I was getting out to work at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I dive real quick at home. But I'm happy that I get to go to the minyan. I look forward to it. If I miss it, it bothers the heck out of me. Okay. But it's part of me. It's who I am after 30 years of doing that, at least. I hope maybe more. Other people, they lose a relative, God forbid. Oh, God. You do this 3 times a day? Go to shul? Seriously? Oh, my Lord. I've had people after a year of saying Kaddish come to me in shul, Chicago. See you next year on my yard site. Okay? It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. But if it becomes part of you, so if the person doesn't go to meetings, so the person goes to shul besides Shabbat. Saying, I'm going to go on Monday. I'm going to go on Thursday. I'm going to go Tuesday for Mincha. Whatever it is. Again, slowly building in. No slam against, by the way, It's interesting. If you look in the Shulchan Aruch, it doesn't say you have to daven to minyan. It says yishtadel. You should try to daven to minyan. You say, oh, see, it says just try. Yeah, but it also says that a mitzvah tzitzit is kiyumi. That if you have a beged that has four corners and you're going to put it on, then you have to put on tzitzit on it. But it doesn't mean if you don't, that you don't have to. But it's become part of the minhag that's turned into halacha. You do it. Okay. I don't know. I varied and got to there. It's not, again, we can't say that one mitzvah is more important than the other. Why? Because we don't know the reward. We don't know what we get for it, which is why, and we talked about this way back in Parak Bet, that the reward for Shiluach HaKan, shooing away the mother bird, and the reward for Kibud Av V'Em, honoring your parents, is the exact same thing. Lengthening of days, lengthening of life. Like, whoa, I go like this, and I made a bracha. I would never had the opportunity, but make a bracha, that's a little bit easier than, going to Chicago and deal with my mom right now. It is, tachlis. But it's the same reward. It's Kibud Av V'Em, Arichut Yamim. Shiluach HaKan, Arichut Yamim. And it's a school of also for children, by the way, for people who are infertile. It's not a common mitzvah. Because most of the time when you come across the situation where you have a bird on its mother, with a chick in its mother's nest, in the nest, or it's an egg, it's usually on your property, it's in your backyard, it's already enclosed, like it's shamur. It has to be outside, it has to be a kosher bird, it has to be a female bird, so not so simple. And I learned an interesting thing. Like I just said before, I learned from everybody. I try to learn from everybody. Someone called me up to ask me this, still in Chicago, I remember, and asked me, I have on my windowsill. No, it wasn't windowsill. It was a place that was potentially able to do the mitzvah. So I said, here's how you do it. You make the bracha. And then the husband called me it was the wife. He called me a little later, says, I might be mistaken. I'm not an ornithologist. Another word I don't use very often, bird person. But I'm pretty sure that when you see a bird hovering over its nest during the daytime, it's the male bird, not the mother bird. So most of the time, it's not the mother bird either. Whoa. And I looked into it, and he was right. So there's so many factors that go into it. But putting that aside, it's the simple thing of going and making the bracha before that, and the Kibud Av V'Em. Same reward to tell us, because we don't know. It's Hashem's cheshbon. It also says, you'll notice, it doesn't say to be mekayem or to do the mitzvah, a simple mitzvah like a difficult mitzvah. It doesn't say that. It says run to it. What's the difference? One is I might not actually end up doing it. I mean, like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go do this. And I give up one, or I get there and it's not available for me to do for whatever reason it might be. It doesn't say you should keep a small mitzvah like a hard mitzvah. It says just make the attempt. The attempt is part of the game as well. We know that the Gemara tells us that when you try to do something, you do it like open up like the size of a needle. Hashem opens up a wide opening for us. We have to do our best. What he's really talking about here is what we talked about at the very beginning of Tzilat Sharim, and that's the midah zrizut. Zrizut is the second one. Zihirut is first. Zrizut is you go out of your way. You always try to do something quickly, fast. Not to do the actual mitzvah, but to get to it. You're not, in general, on Shabbat, you can't run. I'm talking about exercise. I'm talking about run. You can't run on Shabbat. You are allowed to run to shul. There are people, I remember seeing this for the first time here, I never saw it in the States, who would walk to shul, and as you're about to get to shul, then they run. And that also counts as running to the mitzvah, which is kind of, I don't do that. It's okay. If I run, they need to have Mada there. They have to take my pulse, and it's like this. Get the Lambu cycle going to get me. But it's about a concept of zrizut. You don't wait for the mitzvah to come to you. You make opportunities, create opportunities. I've said this mashal before many, many times. I don't think I thought of it, but whatever, it makes no difference. If I am your boss and I'm giving you a territory to sell copy machines, and I give you a choice between Ottumwa, Iowa, and Manhattan, which you're going to choose, right? So if you don't want to make any money, you choose Ottumwa. If you want to make money, you're going to choose Manhattan. But what's the difference? Why? Because the opportunities that exist, there's so many more in Manhattan that there are enough Talmud. And it's just a fact of nature. Same thing is true when it comes to mitzvot. You want to create a situation where there's more and more opportunities. Again, you may not mikayem. You might not end up doing the mitzvah. But when you get yourself into that mindset, it makes a giant difference. Same thing is true from boreach, running away from an avera. It says that words were, let me get here, like close to the chorus. It says, uvoreach min ha'avera, run away from the avera. So let's assume for a moment, here's a good word, personification. Just used that the other night, giving human qualities to a physical object, an inanimate object, ha'anasha. So let's say for a moment this computer represents an avera. Now, I can kind of dance around it. Let's say it's not an avera. Well, in my opinion, it's different. It is an avera to smoke, but that's a different story. Let's say that it's an avera to smoke. So this is the pack of cigarettes, and I decided I'm going to quit, but I still have that last pack. I don't know. So I kind of get closer. I pick it up. I look. It's one more. You know what? The box is half done. I might as well finish it up. No. You don't want to get anywhere near it. Don't allow that avera even to come to close to you. A person, I've said before, a person who's an alcoholic, the worst job that can have is to be a bartender. So you don't take a job, you go look into the want ad and say, oh, they need a bartender. I know all about drinking. I can do that one, right? So you want to run away from that. You want a big red X on that right away. And in both cases, you're proactive and you're keeping another Mishnah. It says, who is considered wise? One who sees, literally means that which is being born, giving birth. What does that mean? I know that if I were to get into the car, God forbid, drunk, I've never been drunk. I got in the car. I know that something, God forbid, could happen. I don't have to experience it. I know it. I know that if I am going to do X, Y might happen. And we all know. So being aware of what the hashlachot or the ramifications of our actions are always important. And that's what this is about also. Ramifications of running to mitzvah and running away from another. We know the ramifications, both the good and the bad. And but Azai is actually encouraging us because he's saying, going back to what I said at the beginning of this Mishnah, don't expect to be a gibor overnight. Don't expect to be this mighty person who's overcome their Yetzer Hara, whatever it might be, overnight. It takes time. And when you do, the way to do that is start off slowly. A person who is becomes religious, grew up not religious, the worst thing you can do is decide on day one, I'm going to do everything. It's the worst thing you can do. You set yourself up for failure from day one. No question. Start off with on tefillin, tzitzit. Great, good job. Okay, get used to that. Maybe Birkat Hamazon, so Doraita, it's a Torah level obligation. Let's work on Shabbat. Okay, you never kept Shabbat in your life. Let's try it. Friday night, before Shabbat, light the candles, have challah, and have wine. And you're going to end up going out with your friends to a movie. Try and do this and grow. That's what it's all. I always said I want to be the Rambam's Baal Tshuva. We all need to be Baalei Tshuva. We always need to be growing. But a person who didn't grow up with the religion, with a religious background, and they start with it, and usually I've been talking about later in life. I'm not talking as a 6-year-old and the family decides to become religious because it's not the same thing. It's in steps, and that becomes successful that way, not the other way. And that's one meaning of mitzvah goreret mitzvah. That when you do one thing, it leads to the option of the way you're going to do another one. There's another idea, or maybe we could look at it just a little differently. I'm beginning of Parshat Vayetze. Yaakov Avinu, not far from here, is in Beit El, and he lies down on his rock. For those of you who have not been to Beit El, there is a very large, there's a picture of me lying on it with the Tanakh, actually I have, a large rock in Beit El, which they say is Yaakov's rock that he slept on. And they did this experiment on this rock. They have found material of the stone from different parts of Israel, all in this one rock, which is pretty cool. In any case, so he lies down, he has a dream. He says, he saw Sulam Mutzav Arutzah, he saw this ladders on the ground. The top reached all the way to the heavens. And what does that mean? How does that affect us here? It's a process. You don't walk up a ladder like you would walk up a ramp. A ramp, just here, it takes 1, 2, 1, 2. Or hopefully you don't take a double step up. You go what's called shalav, shalav. You go step by step. But the other side of the coin is also true. And if avira kala, again, it doesn't say that, but a quote, a simple avira can cause other problems. When a person gets into the swing of things and they start doing things wrong, I have dealt with people with addictions counseling, and all of them said, I'll use the example of drugs. It was first hard to try it to marijuana. It was just weird. I just didn't feel right. I probably shouldn't have done it, but I did, and I liked it. And then I said, cocaine. Cocaine, crazy? But after a while, maybe cocaine. After you get used to a certain path, the next stage, which is the next stage down, not up, becomes easier. And the same thing is true as here. I'm going to read you a Gemara. It says in Masechet Shabbat, Kufay, Shekach umenato shel hayetzara. This is the way, this is the job of the Yetzer Hara. Hayom omer lo aseh kach. One day the Yetzer Hara says to you, do this. Umachar omer lo aseh kach. The next day he said, do that. Ad shomer lo avod avodah zara. Until the point where he says, serve idols, and you do it. It doesn't mean one day also you're eating without a bracha one day and the next day you're bowing down to Buddha. It's not what it means. But again, he's making the point in the Gemara that it's a process, just like we talk about a process to try and do better and do more mitzvot. The same process works in the reverse. Tov, I'm gonna leave till next week the something from Tehillim that David HaMelech starts with that tells us this whole thing in one pasuk. Okay, so we'll say Bezrat Hashem next week. Have a good day and have a Shabbat Shalom, everybody.